Beneath St. Mary's. Rain fell over the city like a curtain of silver threads. The streets were nearly empty, swallowed by darkness and silence. At exactly 2:13 a.m., an emergency call reached the Metropolitan Police Department. A body had been discovered beneath the old St. George clock tower, a forgotten landmark abandoned for decades. Within minutes, blue and red lights flashed across the deserted square as officers secured the scene. Detective Duke Harrison stepped out of his car and pulled his coat tighter against the cold wind. His sharp gray eyes immediately examined every corner of the crime scene. 20 years of experience had taught him that every murder left a story behind. The challenge was learning how to read it. An officer approached him quickly. "Detective Harrison. The victim has been identified as Judge Robert Callahan." Duke's expression hardened. Callahan was one of the most influential judges in the city. Powerful people rarely died alone in forgotten places. Duke walked toward the body. The judge lay on the wet pavement, his eyes frozen wide open in terror. Resting carefully on his chest was a single black raven feather. Duke crouched beside the corpse. Something about the feather felt intentional, almost ceremonial. "No fingerprints?" he asked. The forensic examiner shook her head. "None. The killer cleaned everything." Duke studied the victim's face. Fear. Pure fear. Whatever happened before death had terrified the judge. Then his attention shifted toward the stone wall behind the body. Written in blood was a series of strange symbols and numbers arranged in a pattern that looked more like a puzzle than a message. Several detectives had already photographed it. None could understand it. "What is it?" Duke asked. "No idea," another officer admitted. "We thought it might be a code." Duke stood and stared at the symbols for several seconds. Something felt familiar about them, but he couldn't place it. Suddenly a young detective approached carrying a tablet. "Sir, we found security footage from a nearby street." Duke followed him to the patrol vehicle. The video showed a dark figure walking toward the clock tower shortly before midnight. The person's face remained hidden beneath a hood. The footage lasted only a few seconds before the figure disappeared from view. No vehicle. No identifiable features. Nothing useful. Duke exhaled slowly. Whoever committed this murder knew exactly what they were doing. By sunrise, news of the killing had spread throughout the city. Journalists flooded the area. Social media exploded with speculation. Every channel carried the same story. A powerful judge had been murdered and the police had no suspects. By noon, the mayor was demanding answers. The police commissioner personally assigned Duke to lead the investigation. 3 hours later, Duke sat inside a conference room reviewing photographs when the door opened. A man entered carrying several files under one arm. He looked younger than Duke expected. Dark hair. Sharp features. Calm blue eyes that seemed to notice everything. "Detective Harrison," the man said. "I'm Ian Whitmore." Duke immediately recognized the name. Ian was one of the country's leading cryptographers and behavioral analysts. His work had helped solve multiple high-profile cases. Duke had also heard he was difficult to work with. "You're late," Duke replied. Ian glanced at his watch. "Actually, I'm 2 minutes early." Several officers exchanged nervous looks. Duke leaned back in his chair. "Good. Then you can explain the message on that wall." Ian stepped toward the crime scene photographs. He studied them in silence. 1 minute passed. Then 2. The room remained completely quiet. Finally, Ian spoke. "This isn't one message." Duke frowned. "What do you mean?" Ian pointed towards several symbols. "Everyone is reading it horizontally." "That's wrong. The symbols are layered." He grabbed a marker and began drawing on the whiteboard. Within minutes, lines connected numbers, letters, and shapes. The seemingly random code slowly transformed into a structured pattern. Several detectives stared in disbelief. Duke watched without speaking. Ian's hands moved quickly across the board. Then he suddenly stopped. The confidence disappeared from his face. For the first time, he looked concerned. "That's not possible," he whispered. Duke stood. "What?" Ian turned toward him. "This code wasn't created for this murder." The room fell silent. "Then what was it created for?" Duke asked. Ian looked back at the symbols. His expression darkened. "A sequence." "What sequence?" Ian swallowed slowly before answering. "A sequence of deaths." No one spoke. The tension inside the room became suffocating. Ian completed the final line of the translation. Then he stepped aside. Duke read the words written across the board. His jaw tightened immediately. The message contained only one sentence. "For must die before the truth is born." 3 days after the murder of Judge Robert Callahan, the city was living in fear. Every news channel discussed the same case. Every newspaper carried the image of the black raven feather. The media had already given the killer a name: the Raven. Meanwhile, inside the Major Crimes Division, Duke Harrison barely slept. The coded message continued to haunt him. "For must die before the truth is born." The sentence suggested a plan. A countdown. Which meant Robert Callahan was only the beginning. Duke stood in front of a wall covered with photographs, documents, and timelines. Every possible connection had been investigated. Every known enemy of the judge had been questioned. Yet nothing explained the raven feather or the cryptic message. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Ian entered carrying 2 cups of coffee and a folder thick with reports. "You look terrible," Ian said. Duke accepted the coffee. "Good morning to you too." Ian placed the folder on the desk. "I spent all night reviewing Callahan's financial records." Duke raised an eyebrow. "And?" Ian opened the file. The judge received several unexplained payments over the last 15 years. Duke leaned forward. "Bribes?" "Possibly." Ian nodded. "But that's not the interesting part." He slid a photograph across the table. Every payment came from companies connected to a corruption investigation that disappeared 15 years ago. Duke's expression sharpened. Disappeared? The entire case vanished from public records. Ian sat down. No convictions. No trial. Nothing. Duke stared at the photograph. The deeper they looked, the stranger everything became. Before he could respond, the emergency phone rang. The room immediately fell silent. Duke picked up. After less than 30 seconds, his face darkened. He slowly placed the receiver down. Ian already knew the answer. Another body? Duke nodded. Another body. Less than an hour later, they arrived at an abandoned theater near the river. Police officers crowded the entrance. Forensic teams moved in every direction. Duke walked inside with Ian following close behind. The victim was lying on the stage beneath a broken spotlight. A middle-aged man dressed in an expensive suit. His eyes remained open, frozen in fear. On his chest rested a single black raven feather. Duke cursed quietly. "Who is he?" An officer handed him a file. Daniel Pierce, former chief prosecutor. Ian exchanged a glance with Duke. The second victim was another powerful figure. Another man connected to the legal system. Another piece of the puzzle. Duke approached the body. This time, another coded message had been painted across the theater curtain. Ian stared at it for several seconds. Different code. Duke frowned. "Can you solve it?" Eventually. Ian's eyes narrowed. The killer is becoming more confident. Duke looked around the theater. Or more desperate. For the next several hours, the investigation continued. Witnesses were questioned. Evidence was collected. Yet the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While examining old records, Ian discovered that both victims had once participated in the same corruption investigation 15 years earlier. A case involving government officials, judges, prosecutors, and large amounts of missing money. 6 key individuals had led the investigation before it mysteriously disappeared. 2 of them were now dead. Duke stared at the list. 6 names. 2 crossed out. 4 remaining. Suddenly, the message from the clock tower made perfect sense. 4 must die before the truth is born. The killer wasn't predicting future murders. He was announcing them. 4 targets remained alive. Ian looked up from the documents. The killer isn't hiding. Duke nodded slowly. No. He's sending a message. And he wants us to understand it. For the first time, genuine concern appeared in Ian's eyes. Then we're running out of time. That evening, the entire department worked through the night. Duke and Ian remained inside the conference room reviewing evidence. Hour after hour passed. The city lights outside slowly disappeared into darkness. Midnight became 2 o'clock. 2 became 4. Eventually, even the strongest officers began leaving to rest. Only Duke and Ian stayed behind. The room was silent except for the sound of papers turning. Ian rubbed his eyes. His vision had become blurry from exhaustion. You should go home, Duke said without looking up. Ian laughed softly. That's rich coming from you. Duke finally glanced toward him. The dark circles beneath Ian's eyes had become impossible to ignore. How long have you been awake? Duke asked. Ian thought for a moment. 32 hours. Duke nearly dropped his pen. You're insane. Probably. Ian smiled weakly. Then he reached for another document. The moment he stood, the room suddenly spun. His knees gave way. Before he hit the floor, a strong arm wrapped around his waist. Duke caught him instantly. For a brief moment, neither moved. Ian blinked in surprise. Duke's hand remained firmly against his back. The distance between them had completely disappeared. Ian could hear Duke's heartbeat. Strong. Steady. Real. Easy, Duke said quietly. Ian realized how close they were and immediately stepped back. I'm fine. Duke crossed his arms. You almost collapsed. Technically, I did collapse. That's not helping your argument. To Ian's surprise, Duke smiled. A small smile. The first genuine smile he had seen from him. Somehow, that felt more shocking than the murder case. 20 minutes later, Duke forced Ian to sit while he ordered food. Neither mentioned the incident again. Yet something had changed. The tension between them felt different now. Softer. More familiar. As dawn approached, Ian opened another old archive file. Several photographs slipped from the folder and scattered across the table. One image immediately caught his attention. 6 people stood together in front of a courthouse 15 years earlier. Judge Callahan. Prosecutor Pierce. 4 others. The leaders of the corruption investigation. But one face had been violently scratched out with a knife. Deep cuts crossed the photograph over and over again. Whoever damaged the picture wanted that person erased completely. Duke stared at it. Who is that? Ian slowly turned the photo over. On the back, written in faded ink, was a single name. The room became silent. Because neither of them recognized it. And for the first time, Duke felt they were chasing not just a killer, but a ghost from the past. To be continued. The scratched name on the back of the photograph led Duke and Ian to a place that no longer officially existed. St. Mary's Orphanage had been abandoned for more than a decade. According to public records, the building had closed after a fire damaged part of the property. Then we're running out of time. That evening, the entire department worked through the night. Duke and Ian remained inside the conference room reviewing evidence. Hour after hour passed. The city lights outside slowly disappeared into darkness. Midnight became 2 o'clock. 2 became 4. Eventually, even the strongest officers began leaving to rest. Only Duke and Ian stayed behind. The room was silent except for the sound of papers turning. Ian rubbed his eyes. His vision had become blurry from exhaustion. "You should go home," Duke said without looking up. Ian laughed softly. "That's rich coming from you." Duke finally glanced toward him. The dark circles beneath Ian's eyes had become impossible to ignore. "How long have you been awake?" Duke asked. Ian thought for a moment. 32 hours. Duke nearly dropped his pen. "You're insane." "Probably." Ian smiled weakly. Then he reached for another document. The moment he stood, the room suddenly spun. His knees gave way. Before he hit the floor, a strong arm wrapped around his waist. Duke caught him instantly. For a brief moment, neither moved. Ian blinked in surprise. Duke's hand remained firmly against his back. The distance between them had completely disappeared. Ian could hear Duke's heartbeat. Strong. Steady. Real. "Easy," Duke said quietly. Ian realized how close they were and immediately stepped back. "I'm fine." Duke crossed his arms. "You almost collapsed." "Technically, I did collapse." "That's not helping your argument." To Ian's surprise, Duke smiled. A small smile. The first genuine smile he had seen from him. Somehow, that felt more shocking than the murder case. 20 minutes later, Duke forced Ian to sit while he ordered food. Neither mentioned the incident again. Yet something had changed. The tension between them felt different now. Softer. More familiar. As dawn approached, Ian opened another old archive file. Several photographs slipped from the folder and scattered across the table. One image immediately caught his attention. 6 people stood together in front of a courthouse 15 years earlier. Judge Callahan. Prosecutor Pierce. 4 others. The leaders of the corruption investigation. But one face had been violently scratched out with a knife. Deep cuts crossed the photograph over and over again. Whoever damaged the picture wanted that person erased completely. Duke stared at it. "Who is that?" Ian slowly turned the photo over. On the back, written in faded ink, was a single name. The room became silent. Because neither of them recognized it. And for the first time, Duke felt they were chasing not just a killer, but a ghost from the past. To be continued. The scratched name on the back of the photograph led Duke and Ian to a place that no longer officially existed. St. Mary's Orphanage had been abandoned for more than a decade. According to public records, the building had closed after a fire damaged part of the property. Everything happened in seconds. The Rottenwood collapsed. Ian lost his balance. His body fell toward the dark water below. "Ian." Duke lunged forward without thinking. His hand caught Ian's wrist at the last possible moment. For one terrifying second, Ian hung above the flooded chamber. Then Duke pulled him back with all his strength. Both men crashed onto the floor. Neither spoke. Neither moved. Duke's hand remained locked around Ian's arm. His breathing was uneven. His heartbeat pounded loudly in his ears. Ian stared at him. For the first time since they had met, Duke looked genuinely afraid. Not angry. Not frustrated. Afraid. "I'm okay," Ian said softly. Duke didn't answer immediately. His grip tightened slightly. As if he needed proof that Ian was really there. "Don't do that again." The words came out rougher than intended. Ian blinked. "I didn't exactly plan it." A weak laugh escaped him. Duke finally released his arm and looked away. But the fear remained visible in his eyes. Something shifted between them during that moment. Something neither wanted to acknowledge. Yet neither could ignore. Later that evening, they sat outside the orphanage while waiting for additional forensic teams. The sun had already disappeared. The sky above them was filled with stars. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable. Ian held a cup of coffee between his hands. Duke sat beside him, staring into the darkness. "You know," Ian said eventually, "when I first met you, I thought you were impossible to work with." Duke smirked. "Only at first?" Ian laughed. "Maybe for the first month." Duke shook his head. "That's generous." Another silence followed. This one softer than before. Ian looked toward the orphanage. "Do you think we'll catch him?" Duke already knew who he meant. The Raven. The man behind the murders. The ghost chasing justice through blood. "We will," Duke answered. "Because if we don't, more people will die." Ian nodded slowly. His gaze remained fixed on the building. Something about St. Mary's continued to bother him. A feeling buried deep inside his mind. A memory that refused to surface. As forensic teams arrived, a technician handed Ian a box recovered from the basement archives. Most of the papers inside were damaged by water. But one document remained readable. It contained a complete list of children who had lived at St. Mary's over the years. Ian scanned the names absent-mindedly. Then he froze. His breath caught in his throat. His hands began to tremble. Duke noticed immediately. "Ian?" Ian couldn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on one specific line. One name had been circled repeatedly in red ink. Again and again. As though someone had been obsessed with it. As though someone had never forgotten it. Duke stepped closer and looked at the page. The moment he saw the name, the color drained from his face as well. Written in faded letters was a name neither of them expected to find. Ian Whitmore. The name stared back at them from the paper like a ghost reaching through time. Ian Whitmore. For several seconds, neither Duke nor Ian spoke. The cold night air suddenly felt heavier. Ian's eyes remained fixed on the document. His heart pounded against his chest. "This has to be a mistake," he whispered. Duke took the paper and examined it carefully. The date matched Ian's age. The records appeared authentic. There was no sign of forgery. "Ian," Duke began. "I don't remember this place." Ian's voice sounded distant. "I would remember an orphanage." Yet even as he said the words, uncertainty crept into his mind. Small fragments of memory began surfacing. A narrow hallway. Children's laughter. The smell of old books. A woman's voice calling his name. Images appeared and disappeared before he could grasp them. Duke watched him closely. Trauma can do strange things. Ian looked away. He knew Duke was right. Sometimes the mind buried painful memories to protect itself. But why had his name been circled? Why had someone focused on him specifically? Over the following days, Ian became obsessed with finding answers. Every available hour was spent reviewing old records from St. Mary's. Most led nowhere. Missing documents. Destroyed files. Dead ends. Then, on the fourth night, he discovered something hidden inside an archived medical report. His adoption records had been altered. Entire sections were missing. Someone had deliberately erased information about his childhood. More importantly, there was one name repeatedly mentioned before the pages were removed. Adrian Cole. Duke immediately recognized it. The same name written on the back of the damaged photograph. Their mysterious ghost finally had an identity. According to old records, Adrian Cole had lived at St. Mary's alongside Ian. Both boys had arrived within months of each other. Both had disappeared from the orphanage after the corruption investigation collapsed. The difference was simple. Ian survived. Adrian was presumed dead. At least officially. Duke spent the next week tracking Adrian's history. Every lead pointed toward the same conclusion. Adrian Cole was alive. And he had spent 15 years hunting the people responsible for destroying countless children's lives. "He's the Raven," Duke said during a late-night briefing. Ian studied the evidence spread across the table. "Maybe." Duke frowned. "Maybe?" Ian pointed towards several documents. "The murders are too precise." "What does that mean?" "It means Adrian had help." Duke crossed his arms. "From who?" Ian looked up slowly. "Someone with access to police records." The room fell silent. Duke understood immediately. The killer always seemed one step ahead. Evidence disappeared before investigators arrived. Witnesses vanished. Confidential information leaked repeatedly. There was only one explanation. Someone inside law enforcement was feeding information to the Raven. The realization was terrifying. It meant the investigation had been compromised from the beginning. 2 days later, Duke received confirmation. Financial records connected a senior police captain to multiple companies involved in the St. Mary's scandal. The captain had quietly protected those responsible for years. Before Duke could secure an arrest warrant, everything went wrong. Ian disappeared. It happened after a meeting with a potential witness. Security footage showed him entering an underground parking garage. He never came back out. His phone stopped responding 20 minutes later. Duke received the call while reviewing evidence. The moment he learned Ian was missing, every rational thought disappeared. Officers searched throughout the city. Roadblocks were established. Witnesses were questioned. Hours passed without results. Duke refused to leave the command center. The lack of sleep had become obvious. His eyes were bloodshot. His jaw remained clenched. Every passing minute felt like a knife twisting deeper into his chest. Around midnight, a younger detective approached him. "Sir, you need some rest." Duke looked at him as though he had spoken another language. "Find Ian." The detective hesitated. "We're trying." "Try harder." The room fell silent. Everyone understood. This was no longer just another investigation for Duke Harrison. Ian had become something more. Something personal. Around 3 in the morning, Duke stood alone on the rooftop of the police headquarters. Rain fell steadily from the sky. The city lights blurred in the distance. For the first time in years, he felt helpless. Memories surfaced without warning. The partner he had lost years ago. The guilt he had never escaped. The promise he made to himself afterward. Never get attached again. Never allow someone to matter that much. Yet somehow Ian had broken through every wall Duke spent years building. Without permission. Without warning. And now he was gone. Duke closed his eyes. A painful truth finally settled inside him. He loved Ian. Not as a colleague. Not as a friend. Not as someone he was responsible for protecting. He loved him completely. The realization arrived too late. At 3:47 a.m., Duke's phone rang. An unknown number appeared on the screen. His pulse immediately accelerated. He answered without hesitation. "Ian?" Static filled the line. Then a weak voice emerged. "Duke." Relief hit him so hard he nearly lost his balance. "Where are you?" Silence followed. Then Ian spoke again. His voice was shaky. Tired. Afraid. "Listen carefully." Duke gripped the phone tighter. "I'm listening." More static crackled through the connection. Somewhere in the background, a metal door slammed shut. Ian lowered his voice. "They want you here." Duke's stomach tightened. Who? The people behind St. Mary's. Another pause. Then Ian whispered the words that would haunt Duke for the rest of his life. Don't come alone. The lines suddenly went dead. Duke stared at the phone. Rain continued falling around him. Somewhere in the darkness, Ian was waiting. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Duke knew the end was near. One way or another, everything would be revealed. The abandoned ruins of St. Mary's stood beneath a storm-filled sky. Lightning flashed across the clouds, illuminating the broken windows and crumbling walls before darkness swallowed them again. Duke Harrison stepped out of his car and stared at the building that had destroyed so many lives. Police backup waited several streets away, but Duke could not afford to wait. Ian was somewhere inside. The moment he entered the orphanage, silence surrounded him. Water dripped from the ceiling while his footsteps echoed through the empty corridors. Then a voice emerged from the darkness. Duke. He turned and saw Adrian Cole standing in the shadows. For the first time, Duke came face to face with the man known as the Raven. Adrian looked exhausted rather than dangerous, like a man carrying 15 years of pain. Where is Ian? Duke demanded. Alive, Adrian replied calmly. Relief washed through Duke, but only for a moment. Take me to him. Adrian shook his head. Not yet. Lightning flashed again as Adrian finally revealed the truth. He had survived St. Mary's and spent years hunting those responsible for the crimes committed there. However, he had never been the mastermind. He had merely been a weapon. Following Adrian deeper into the building, Duke eventually reached the old chapel where Ian was being held. His hands were tied, but he was unharmed. The moment their eyes met, both men felt a wave of relief so powerful that neither could speak. Duke crossed the room immediately and untied him. You okay? Ian nodded. I'm fine. It was clearly a lie, but hearing his voice was enough. Duke's hand lingered on Ian's shoulder a second longer than necessary before slow applause echoed through the chapel. Both men turned. The police commissioner stepped from the shadows. The most respected man in the city. The man nobody had ever suspected. Ian's expression hardened instantly. The commissioner smiled as though he had already won. Piece by piece, the truth emerged. 15 years ago, he had protected the trafficking network operating through St. Mary's. Judges, prosecutors, and officials had been paid to stay silent. When Adrian discovered the truth, the commissioner erased his identity and turned him into a fugitive. Every murder Adrian committed over the years unknowingly benefited the commissioner by eliminating people who could expose him. Realizing he had been manipulated shattered Adrian completely. His revenge had only helped the monster he hated. The commissioner slowly reached for his weapon, but Ian had already anticipated his move. Now, Ian said. Within seconds, armed officers flooded into the chapel from every entrance. The commissioner attempted to escape, but there was nowhere left to run. His empire collapsed that night along with every lie he had built around it. In the weeks that followed, the entire city learned the truth about St. Mary's. The corruption scandal dominated every headline. Victims finally received justice. Powerful figures were arrested. Adrian surrendered peacefully, no longer carrying the rage that had consumed him for so many years. 1 month later, Duke stood on the balcony of his apartment overlooking the city. The night was calm. No murders. No investigations. No coded messages. Just silence. The balcony door opened behind him, and Ian stepped outside carrying 2 glasses of wine. He handed one to Duke before standing beside him. For a while, neither spoke. They simply watched the city lights shimmer below. Finally, Ian smiled. It's strange. Duke glanced at him. What is? Ian laughed softly. No bodies. Duke laughed too, a genuine laugh that Ian rarely heard. The silence that followed felt comfortable. Safe. We survived, Ian said quietly. Duke nodded. We did. Ian looked toward the skyline. There were moments I wasn't sure we would. Duke turned to face him. There were moments I wasn't sure either. The honesty in his voice made Ian's chest tighten. After months spent chasing death through abandoned buildings, hidden codes, and buried secrets, they were finally here. Alive. Together. Duke slowly reached for Ian's hand. This time there were no interruptions. No danger. No unfinished cases. Their fingers intertwined naturally. Ian smiled and stepped closer. You know, he said softly, for someone who solves impossible cases, you took a very long time to figure this one out. Duke raised an eyebrow. Figure out what? Ian looked directly into his eyes. Us. For the first time in years, Duke found himself speechless. Then he laughed quietly and closed the remaining distance between them. Their foreheads touched gently, like two storms finally finding peace after years of wandering. The city lights reflected in Ian's eyes, brighter than anything Duke had seen during the entire investigation. Outside, life continued moving forward, but inside that small balcony space, time seemed to pause. After all the darkness, all the bloodshed, all the secrets and lies, they had finally found something worth keeping. Not justice. Not victory. Not closure. Each other. And for the first time since the case began, neither man felt alone. The end. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to support me and motivate me to create more videos.